again everybody, and here we are with the second scenario from our Vanguard campaign, and this one is called Recover the Plans. So what's happened in the campaign so far? The first battle was at the village of Sheepslaughter, where the two warbands were looking for supplies to sustain them for their journey across the Heartbreak Mountains. They've now crossed the Heartbreak Mountains and arrived at the Silver Oasis, where both warbands were expecting to meet a messenger who had sold them the plans and the map for the route through to the treasure in the fabled city of Altria. And they didn't realise, both wheel ones didn't realise, that he had double-crossed both of them and had sold the plans in advance to both. However, while he was waiting for them, he had actually died of thirst in the desert. And you can see him there sitting in the middle of the desert. There he is, having died of thirst and been picked clean by the carrion. And he has got the plans on him. Or has he? We will see as the campaign battle unfolds. So let's have a look at the two warbands that the companies have put together. And first of all, the Abyssal warband. And there's a Hellquin blood mask. And you may remember that the leader of the company was killed in the last one. In the last battle, and this is the new leader, Peveril Heights. There's a despoiler, and I finally got round to painting my despoiler model, so there he is as part of the warband. There are two flame bearers, there are 3 abyssal guards, there's a unit of imps, and there is the abyssal warlock. So that's the warband, and there's a close-up of the despoiler that I've just finished painting. Looking then at the ogres, and they've got the ogre captain, and supporting him there is a siege breaker. And you may remember the siege breaker was upgraded at the end of the last game, so he is now melee 3+. There's the ogre warlock, and you may remember he lost an arm at the end of the last game, so he is down to melee 6. Ogre warrior, there's a hunter, first time out the hunter, and that's the Yeti model. There are 3 red goblin rabble, and 2 of those have got goblin spears. So it's a captain, a siege breaker, a warlock, a warrior, a hunter, and 3 rabble. That's the makeup of the two warbands. And this is the deployment. So there's the Abyssals who come on from the northwest corner. And there's the Ogres who come on from the southeast corner. So off we go, turn 1. And the Abyssals have the initiative in turn 1. Really poor dice rolls for both sides really, but particularly for the Abyssals, who were rolling 6 red dice and got to re-roll one of them and still only got 3 power. So not a good start for them. And everybody moved forward cagily at this stage. There was no contact made, no one was in range to shoot or for close combat. The hunter made use of his Pathfinder ability and moved into the woods. The 2 flame bearers had moved forward, but realised at the end of a turn they were actually in charge range of some of the ogres, and so they were forced fatigued and moved backwards out of charge range. And the ogres forced fatigued the siege breaker and his supporting goblin to move forward to be within striking distance of the messenger with the map for the next phase. And that's the situation overall at the end of turn 1. Turn 2, the ogres have the initiative. Better dice rolls both round. The Abyssals now with 6 power dice and the ogres with 5 as we go into turn 2. And the ogres moved a goblin forward into base contact with the body of the messenger. And then they discovered when he rolled a 2 that he was not actually holding the plans. So they had to roll a second dice, which came up with a 5, and that meant the plans are actually concealed in a casket at the top right, in the northeast corner of the board at the top right, and you can see it on top of a hill at the back there. And that's going to mean a massive change of direction for both warbands, as instead of going for the messenger body in the middle, they're going to have to go and find the plans in that casket at the top there. Now you can see the change of direction for the abyssals. And the imps deliberately put themselves offering a charge to the ogres, which would then have been met by a furious counter charge by the other units in the area, and that was not taken up. Flame Bearers did try shooting the ogre captain. Both of them shot, and they did 1 wound overall on the ogre captain. The Abyssal Warlock, force fatigued and 2 dice to range boost fireball, and hits on the hunter, but all was saved. And moving into turn 3, good turn for the Abyssals this time, 6 power dice for them and only 3 for the ogres. And at the start of the turn, the Abyssals managed a group shot at the ogre captain. 1 hit, which wasn't saved, and then at the end of their group shot, both then walked backwards out of range, put themselves out of range. The ogres then mounted a group charge with the captain, the siege breaker, and a supporting goblin into the despoiler. The siege breaker drank his potion of haste, this in order to avoid being hindered on the charge. The captain managed 4 hits, only 1 of which was saved, and the despoiler retaliated and caused 1 wound on the captain. Siege breaker then managed 7 hits, of which only 2 were saved, meaning 5 wounds onto the despoiler. Despoiler managed to survive, and he triggered his fury and retaliated, causing 3 wounds on the siege breaker. The warlock then cast Battle Fury on the siege breaker, allowing it to attack again, another 4 hits, and this finally managed to kill the despoiler. It's a bit of a shame I haven't had a chance to see him in action, but there's the despoiler dead. The siege breaker followed up, moving forward and turning to face the bulk of the army. The Abyssal Guard then charged into the ogre captain, causing 3 hits and 1 wound, and the captain retaliated and killed the warrior, the Abyssal Guard. The ogre hunter charged the Abyssal Guard and caused an amazing 6 hits. Astonishingly though, the guard rolled equally well and managed to save them all. And he retaliated and caused a wound on the hunter. The Abyssal leader then charged into the ogre leader. 4 hits, 3 of them were 2s, but because of his expert rider rule, they caused hits. Only 1 was saved, putting 3 wounds onto the ogre, and he actually failed and died. The ogre warrior moved up to the plans, but didn't have enough actions left to claim them, but he was touching them. And the imps charged a goblin. With a combination of exploding 8s and the vicious rule, they actually managed 4 hits, which resulted in a dead goblin. The Abyssal Warlock fireballed the siege breaker in cover, only caused 1 hit, which was saved. And there's the dead pile at the end of the turn 3. Despoiler and a Abyssal Guard on one side and a goblin and a ogre captain on the other. As we go into turn 4, I didn't take a photograph of the slide at the start of turn 4, but the abyssals have 5 power, and the ogres, who of course have lost their only command model, only have 2. The ogres had the initiative and moved a goblin to within 3 inches of the mask in order to provide support to the Siegebreaker. They then used a power dice for a second activation, and the ogre Siegebreaker in meleeed against the abyssal mask. He actually managed 6 hits, which became 6 wounds, and the mask buyed 1 extra dice, needing 7+, and he saved 5. So actually only 1 wound was caused. The mask retaliated, causing 5 hits, became 3 wounds. Nerve check at -1 was failed, but the Siegebreaker had a lucky charm which he popped, and he managed to survive. But he was knocked down and fatigued. There he is, knocked down and fatigued. The Abyssal Guard fighting the Hunter cleared his fatigue and went into melee against the Hunter, caused 1 hit, which became 1 wound. The Hunter retaliated with 4 hits, became 4 wounds, nerve check at -2, and by using 1 extra power dice, actually managed to pass his nerve check. Ogres are going to come back to that battle later on, but for now they had a bigger fish to fry in the middle, where the Warlock cast Battle Fury on the Siegebreaker again, who's fighting the mask. Did 2 wounds, but the mask retaliated back into the Siegebreaker, causing another 2 wounds, and this time he did fail his nerve check and failed. The Abyssal Hunter went back into the Abyssal Guard, caused 4 hits, all of which were saved. Some astonishing dice throwing going on most of the stages of this battle by the Abyssals. To save 4 hits from the Hunter was quite extraordinary. At the top, the Ogre Warrior actually used a short action to collect the map and the plans. And the Imps did another hindered charge into a goblin, and again managed to kill it on first contact. So that's 2 successes already for the Imps, who are really doing rather well on this one. And the Abyssal Guard, which had survived the attacks of the Hunter, now contacted the Hunter again in melee. 2 hits, caused 2 wounds, nerve check at -1, failed. And so the Hunter is dead. Really quite astonishing series of dice rolls for the Hunter up there. Sorry, that wasn't the Abyssal Guard we'll be fighting. That was a new Abyssal Guard that charged into the melee. Going back to that last photograph, you can see the ogres are not in a great position. They are holding the plans, however, so if they can get that warrior out of the way, out of harm's way, they do stand a chance of winning the scenario, even though most of their warband is sitting in the dead pile. So going into turn 5, the ogres have the initiative, which is good, and have 4 power dice, and the abyssals have 7. The ogre's initiative, and the aim is to keep the warrior out of the charge range of the mask, and so he moves down here carrying the plans with him. The abyssals move a flame bearer up into range, force fatigue him to shoot. Even though there's cover, he actually manages 3 hits on the warrior, all of which wound, and he has to do a nerve check, and he fails. And again, really good dice rolling by the abyssals, and really poor dice rolling by the ogres. I mean, that's almost certainly the end of the battle as we know it. The goblin wanted to charge the imps, thinking the only way he was going to survive, win the battle, was by stopping the imps picking up those plans. He had to do a fallback check, which he passed using 1 extra power dice. Charge in and caused 1 wound on the imps. The imps retaliated using fury triggered by using 2 power dice. Between Vicious and Exploding 8s, did 7 hits on the Goblin, which perhaps not surprisingly died. And the Imps followed up forward. The Ogre Warlock passed his fallback check, moved out of cover and tried to fireball the Imps. Did 1 hit, which caused a wound, but they're still surviving as they have 3 wounds. And the Abyssal Flamebearer on the southern flank moved forward and forced Fatigue to shoot the Warlock. A clear line of sight, used an extra power dice, had 3 hits, became 3 wounds. On the nerve check, managed to survive a nerve check, but he was saved and knocked down. And the Imps then, in their turn, managed to move and pick up the plans. Abyssals moved forward, and the Abyssal Warlock fireballed the Ogre Warlock and killed him, bringing the battle to an end. And there is the dead pile at the end of the turn. So at the end of game turn 2, or was it 3, there were 2 models each. The rest of the battle, the ogres have killed nothing, but their entire warband is now sitting in the dead pile. So not really a greatly successful battle for the ogres. So going into post-engagement, we returned all the equipment to the caravan. We then looked at casualties. So there again is the dead pile at the end of that turn. So looking at the ogres first of all, the 3 grunts of course are dead. That's it, end for them. The ogre captain lost an eye, which means his range stat would go up by 1, but since he has no range stat anyway, we decided we'd stick with that. Doesn't affect him at all effectively in combat. If he is to lose another eye, however, he would be out of the game completely. Because I do have a healer in the company, we could have re-rolled that, but we decided not to. That's a good one for him, we kept that. And on the Siegebreaker, he has got Haunting Nightmares, which will come back to affect him later on, and effectively it increases his nerve by 1. It's a bad thing to do, but we decided we'd keep that as there were worse things out there. The other 2, after re-rolls, because of the healer in the company, all made a full recovery. One of them made a full recovery first time. The other 2 had bad things happen to them, which we were able to re-roll, and they made full recoveries. And looking at the Abyssals, bizarrely, they both, straight off the bat, made a full recovery, which is rather lucky. You may remember the last game, the leader was killed at this stage in the campaign. But it did make the Abyssals realise how lucky they'd been, and later on they decided they were going to buy a healer for their retinue. So looking at retinue assessment, as I say, the Abyssals decided to train a healer for 3 campaign gold. What they decided was, since the healer doesn't actually need to have been in a battle to have the effect, they'd choose one of their models they never intended to put into combat, and they gave the lower Abyssal the healer ability, and the ogres decided to upgrade the Siegebreaker to the Mauler in the retinue for, again, 3 gold coins. Resolving experience, not much for the ogres as they lost the battle. Only 2 enemy were killed, and the leader was killed, but the leader had killed someone, and he was upgraded to rank 1 and increased his wounds to 6. On the Abyssal side, the Imps, who did astonishingly well in that battle, were upgraded to rank 1 and increased their wounds to 4. Both the Flame Bearers were upgraded to rank 1 and both improved their range stats to 4+. The 2 Abyssal Guards that survived the battle were upgraded to rank 1 and both increased their wounds to 3. And the Warlock was upgraded to rank 1 and improved his range stat to 4+. So a massive, massive improvement for the Abyssal Warband, which had already wiped out the ogres, so they're probably going to do even better next time round. Looking at the campaign gold, the ogres lose, so they get 10 campaign gold, and the Abyssals won with 16. And they went to forage and explore, and the ogres who have a Pathfinder rolled an 8 first of all, which could have been re-rolled because of a Pathfinder, but 8's a good roll, so they stuck with that, and that gives them an extra 8 campaign gold. And the second dice was an 8, giving them 88, which was the Dragon's Lair. They chose to explore but rolled a 3, which meant the lair is abandoned, and so they get no additional gold from that. The Abyssals, who had a scout, step 1 they rolled a 6, which gave them 6 campaign gold, and step 2 they rolled a 7, which was refugees, which would have given them nothing, but because of the scout they could re-roll that, and they got a 65, which is fighting pits, and they put the Hellquin into the fighting pits with 3 attacks. He rolled a 2, 3 and 6, which meant he did not win any money. And that's what exactly happened to the ogres last time, so I don't think that's a great result on the table. Looking at recruitment and resupply, the ogres bought a healing potion, a book of secrets and a potion of concentration for 15 campaign gold. The Abyssals did nil. One thing I hadn't realised in rereading the book is that they don't need to buy. I thought they were going to have to buy the grunts, having now had all 6 of the goblins in the company killed. I hadn't realised, but when you read the book carefully, it says that grunts are replaced automatically for free at this stage. So I didn't need to do that. And we confirmed the roster updates, and that was the end of the post-engagement phase. And so in conclusion, what did we learn? Well, I think the first thing we learned is that the Abyssals roll extraordinary dice rolls. It's a bit of a shame I didn't have a chance to try out the Despoiler in combat, as he was killed before he had a chance really to do anything. But I suppose by dying he held up the captain and the Siegebreaker and put some wounds on them, which meant they could be killed later on. I think as well there's some pointers about how to play that scenario better, which if I ever play that scenario again maybe we'll put into effect. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that run through of the battle, and we'll see you in due course for Battle 3. Thank you very much.